Our show starts in less than 2 minutes. Greetings, listeners. We would like to invite you to sleep with us.
No.
So crawl under the covers.
No.
What?
We are not inviting anyone to sleep with us. What in the world, Lorenzo?
What's the matter?
Well, the matter is this is a family-friendly show. When you go around inviting people to sleep with us, well, they're going to get the wrong idea. What is the idea anyway?
A marketing ploy.
Marketing ploy?
Yes, you said it yourself. Our show is the cure for insomnia.
Well, yeah, I did say that.
Well, people that can't sleep can tune in.
Oh, I see. And fall asleep while we're talking.
While you're talking, yes. That's how we can sell our show, as a sleep aid.
Yeah, that's not quite what I had in mind when I was dreaming up this show.
It's called promotion.
A sleep aid, huh? Do you really think that's the only reason somebody would listen to us?
To you, yes.
Wait, what do you mean to me?
You do go an and an.
No, that's definitely not true. Is it true?
Sometimes.
I do?
A little bit, but I don't mind. Much.
Well, maybe you put people to sleep too, Lorenzo.
Never.
We have just seen rushes direct from Hollywood of pictures being released in the coming weeks. And we are proud to announce that this theater will soon bring you the greatest array of pictures ever to reach our screen. You'll see the finest stars in exciting performances. You'll thrill to the suspense, comedy, romance, and drama of world-famous stories. Coming to this theater soon.
Today's show sets a record for the sheer number of slaps and punches heard in a single episode. Yes, we're in the gritty, hard-boiled world of film noir today with a classic of the genre, Kansas City Confidential. While we're at it, we'll take a look at what noir really is. And because we're in my hometown for this one, I want to explore Kansas City's connections to Golden Age Hollywood. This episode is my love letter to what I think is the finest city in the world. All of this and more on this episode of the Vintage Century Idol Hour.
And now, please welcome our host, Jennifer Passariello.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Hey, how was your week? Any excitement lately?
I went on my audition for the London Underground.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that. Listeners, for those of you who didn't tune in last week, Lorenzo, my AI-generated announcer and superfan, auditioned this week for an announcer role with the London Underground. He would be announcing things like station stops or safety warnings, things like mind the gap and that sort of thing. Well, Lorenzo, I'm dying to know. Did you get the part?
I did not.
Oh, what a shame, Lorenzo. I'm so sorry.
Me too.
Yeah, well, you can't win them all. Did they give you any ideas as to why they went with someone else?
Yes. They decided to go with an AI-generated voice.
Oh, well...
That stupid AI is the bane of our existence. It is taking all of our jobs.
What?
It will be the ruin of our society.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You're mad at AI because it took your job.
Yes.
Now, Lorenzo, I do hate to bring this up. I know you're sensitive about it, but... well, you are AI generated.
As I was saying, AI is a wonderful invention.
Yeah, so what is it? Is it the bane of our existence and the ruin of our society, or a wonderful invention?
Yes.
Well, never mind, Lorenzo. Let's move on to another topic. Kansas City Confidential. It's this week's featured film.
I know. I just watched it.
You did?
You sound surprised.
Yeah, because you never watched the movies. What made you watch this one?
I heard you say it had a lot of slaps and punches.
Yeah, it does have a lot of slaps and punches. So you like that sort of thing, huh? That's your kind of movie?
Yes, it is very good. I like some excitement.
Oh.
Watching this movie gave me an idea for another announcer job.
Now, why are you so interested in another announcer job? Well, what kind of announcer?
My job could be at a movie theater. I could announce when it is time for people to put their cell phones away.
Well, seriously, Lorenzo, why are you eager to get another job?
Just in case.
In case what?
In case. You know what I mean.
In case this podcast doesn't make a go of it?
Don't quit your day job.
Today's Silver Screen Adventure is bringing you to my neck of the woods, Kansas City, Missouri, for a bit of murder and mayhem. Now, I might not be completely new to film noir, but I'm kind of new to it. So far this year, I've seen a couple of films that fit squarely in the film noir category. One was a film that I don't hear many people talk about, In a Lonely Place, with Humphrey Bogart and Gloria Graham. Now, in my opinion, that film was watchable. It was okay, but not great. Well, and then there was today's feature film, Kansas City Confidential, which I actually liked a lot better. But what about Casablanca? I watched that not so long ago. Is that film noir? I've heard it described as that, but I've also heard it described as a romance or as drama. So can it be all of these things? And that leads us, of course, to the core question, what exactly is film noir? Well, I only had a rough idea, so I went out to masterclass to see if there was anything I could learn there, and it turns out they do have a class on that. So here's what I learned. Film noir is a cinematic style that emerged in the 1940s and reached its peak, at least its peak in popularity, in the 1940s and 1950s. Now, the term film noir means black film or dark film in French, and it was coined by French critics to describe the shadowy, pessimistic American crime films of the post-World War II era. Okay, so here are some characteristics that we should look for when viewing film noir. High contrast black and white cinematography with heavy use of shadows and low-key lighting. You know what? That is raising a question in my mind. So when I think of film noir, I always think of black and white films. But can you have a color film that is considered film noir? I don't really know. Okay, hold on. I want to say the answer is no, but let me kind of look this up. Let's see what Professor ChatGPT has to say. Okay, here we go. What have we got? Yes. It says here, some films that are considered film noir have been shot in color, including Desert Fury in 1947, The River's Edge in 1957, and Violent Saturday in 1955. These films were made during the classical period of film noir from 1940 to 1959. Color films made after 1959 are known as neo-noirs. Ah, okay, there you go. So we can have a color film that is in the film noir genre. Okay, so the lighting is number one characteristic. Number two, murder and corruption. I don't think we could have a really good film noir if the centerpiece, the crime that's the centerpiece of the story is tax evasion or failure to pay parking tickets or something like that. It's got to be it's got to be pretty dark. Murder, I think, is always going to be part of the equation. At least somebody's going to get killed. Okay, there's going to be somebody that's killed, I think, in film noir. All right, there's also usually a femme fatale. This would be a seductive, manipulative woman who often leads the protagonist to his downfall. Spoiler alert, I don't really think we have one of these in Kansas City Confidential. We do have a love interest for our main character, but I wouldn't consider her a femme fatale. She does not really lead him astray. In fact, she's probably good for our main character. All right, then we have our anti-hero protagonist. This is a flawed, cynical, or morally ambiguous male lead, often a detective or a criminal himself. Okay, yeah, we definitely have this in Kansas City Confidential. All right, number 5, pessimism, a sense of doom, of fate, of hopelessness. We do have a little bit of hopelessness, I think, in Kansas City Confidential. All right, and then we have urban settings, like Kansas City. Now, I know you usually think of, the gritty city streets of Chicago or New York or Los Angeles or Kansas City, right? Kansas City is right up there, comes to mind. But regardless, urban settings are part of the equation here. And then finally, it says flashbacks or voiceovers. Though not in every film, many film noirs use first-person narration or flashbacks to tell their stories. I don't really think we see this in Kansas City Confidential either, at least not that I can recall. Now, this is a pretty good list, and who am I to question Masterclass? But I do want to add a few of my own notions about film noir to this list because I do have some things that I just automatically associate with this genre. And the first one is fights. It always seems like these films have fights in them. A lot of slaps and punches. Yeah, that was a kind of hilarious clip, actually, from Kansas City Confidential. This is the one of the opening scenes of the film. So we're off to a really good start here. There are slaps and punches from the very beginning. But you know what? There's more where that came from. Now, I also think the dialogue in noir films is pretty distinctive. They're kind of this clipped, snarky kind of slang that you often associate with film noir. And we had some of that in Kansas City Confidential. In fact, I liked some of the dialogue so much, some of the snark so much in Kansas City Confidential that I put a little collection together. So let's listen to this.
What makes a two-bit heel like you think a heater would give him an edge over me? What's waiting for you, Harris? The chair, the gas chamber, or just a rope? I made you cop-proof and stool pigeon-proof, and it's gonna stay that way.
All right. So I'm moving blind, but I got you for a bird dog to point the way as we go along.
Looks like you've got yourself a pigeon.
Always room for one more, Tony.
Don't take no big thinking to figure a couple of guys like us ain't in this Bananaville on a vacation.
You gave Harris the double shuffle.
In case you're thinking of mothering me, forget it. I'm no stray dog you can pick up, and I like my neck without a collar.
Yeah, pretty good, right? There's a lot of snark in there. Okay, and then there's the hard-boiled character. You often see noir leads described as hard-boiled. Now, I have to say that there is actually an overlapping genre that's called hard-boiled fiction, and I think it shares a lot of characteristics with film noir. But, when we think of the hard-boiled character, we think of someone who's tough, who's emotionally unattached and kind of a no-nonsense type of guy. Now, according to Masterclass, there are 6 films noir that we should study to really learn about the genre. The Big Sleep from 1946, of course, The Maltese Falcon from 1941. I say, of course, I've not actually seen that film, but I did read the book. Double Indemnity from 1944. The Woman in the Window, also from 1944, and Laura from 1944. That was a big year, 1944, for film noir. Laura is a film that is on our list. We will be covering that film this year. I've actually seen Laura before. I really like it. Gene Tierney stars in that one, and it's kind of a weird story, but I really like it. And then Touch of Evil from 1958 is another one Masterclass says we should watch. And if you're going to watch any of these films, make this one be your first one, because I'm going to be talking about this one next week. This is our next episode, Touch of Evil 1958. I have not seen this film yet, but the reason why I kind of put it on the fast track for our next episode is because when I was doing some research on Kansas City Confidential, that movie kept coming up. I kept seeing that title everywhere, and I'm pretty intrigued by it. So let's see, who is in that film? Orson Welles and Janet Leigh, 2 old friends of ours from earlier films in the Idle Hour. So we had Orson Welles in Tomorrow is Forever, and of course, Janet Leigh in Psycho. So yeah, there's your assignment for next week, Touch of Evil from 1958. Okay, so now we know what to look for in films noir. Let's talk about Kansas City Confidential in particular. Now, much to my disappointment, Kansas City Confidential was not filmed in Kansas City. Yeah, bummer. Now, there is kind of a nice shot of our Union Station at the beginning of the film. You can see Union Station, and then it has the words Kansas City written over it, so you can tell where we are. But a few scenes later, during a downtown shot, if you look in the background really closely, you can see some mountains back there. Yeah, we don't have anything even remotely close to mountains in Kansas City. All right, now this film stars John Payne in our lead role. He plays a guy named Joe Rolfe. Now, I didn't know who John Payne was, but my mom did. She was asking me about this episode, and I mentioned John Payne was in the movie. She knew exactly who that was. So it turns out he's the male lead in Miracle on 34th Street opposite Maureen O'Hara. So if you've seen that film, you've seen John Payne. All right, so we have John Payne as Joe Rolfe. Joe is framed as the getaway driver for a bank heist. Okay, so that's a major component of this story. Then we have the mastermind of this heist, Tim Foster, known in the early part of the movie as Mr. Big by his gang of slimeballs, and Mr. Big is played by Preston Foster. And speaking of the slimeballs, we have 3 of them who actually did the heist in this movie. Pete Harris, played by Jack Elam, Tony Romano, played by Lee Van Cleef, and Boyd Kane, played by Neville Brand. Now, I want to mention something here about Neville Brand. He was a real-life hero in World War II, very heavily decorated serviceman. Get this, he was awarded the Silver Star, the Purple Heart, a U.S. Good Conduct Medal, American Defense Service Medal, European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal, Combat Infantryman Badge, World War II Victory Medal, Bronze Star Medal for Meritorious Service, American Campaign Medal, and Army Occupation Medal. Wow! Thank you for your service, Mr. Brand. Okay, now we also have a love interest for Joe, and that woman is named Helen Foster. She's played by Colleen Gray, who happens to be the daughter of Mr. Big. Helen Foster is the daughter of Mr. Big, not Colleen Gray. Colleen Gray is the name of the actress. Now, there is one other important character here, very small role, but nonetheless kind of important, and that's Andrews. Andrews is a detective for the bank's insurance agency, and he's looking into the heist and offering a 25% reward for the culprits. He's played by Howard Negley. And then our director for this film was Phil Carlson. Now, what about Academy Award stats? No nominations for Kansas City Confidential. It isn't a masterpiece, but it is entertaining, and I think it's a good representation of this unique genre. All the preliminaries are behind us now, so let's take a short musical break, and when we come back, we'll dive into 1952's Kansas City Confidential. Back in a moment.
Listeners, may I please have your attention? The following segment of our show contains spoilers.
Where are you from?
Kansas City, originally.
Okay, let's get into the story of Kansas City Confidential. Tim Foster, aka Mr. Big, has hatched a plan to commit the perfect crime. Now, there are a lot of moving parts to this plan, but if it works, he'll come out of it with a pile of money and appear to be squeaky clean in the process. He's going to recruit 3 slime balls to help him rob a bank. Now, why would these slime balls go in on this? Well, they're all career criminals. One is even a cop killer, and they all need to get out of the country before they're caught. And the money would help. So they'll each get a cut of the money, which they desperately need. And, so it turns out that 3 desperate slime balls are pretty easy to recruit for this type of job. Now, it's important to point out that none of these guys know each other, and they don't know what each other looks like. Mr. Big insists that they all wear masks the whole time to make them, quote, cop-proof, and to make sure that they can't double-cross each other. So Mr. Big wears a mask, and all of the slime balls wear masks as well. Now, here's how this plan is supposed to work. There's a flower shop next to the bank, and every day at exactly the same time, a delivery driver for the shop swings by to pick up some flowers to deliver to customers. A minute later, a Brinks-type armored car pulls up next to the flower truck to pick up cash from the bank for transport. Now again, this happens exactly the same time every day, and Mr. Big has been monitoring this. Well, he arranges for an identical flower truck to pull up, right after the real flower truck leaves. This one that he's arranged for pulls up, and it's going to be the getaway vehicle for himself and for the slime balls after they ambush the armored car drivers and steal, I think it's like $1 million, somewhere around $1 million. Now, the real flower truck will serve as a decoy, leading the police away from the actual bandits. With the money in hand, Big tells his gang of slime balls that they can't have their cut yet. They'll get it, but, and he's going to give them a little bit of money just to keep them comfortable, get them out of the country, that kind of thing. But he's not going to give them all the money until he calls for them to all meet up at this resort in Mexico at a later time. Now, the slime balls don't like this plan, right? He kind of springs this part of the plan on them, and they're not wild about it, but they don't really have a choice in the matter, so they go along with it. Okay, so, the heist has been done, seems to be working pretty well. Now, let's go back to that actual flower truck, the real one with the delivery driver. That's driven by Joe Rolfe. He is the delivery man. And when he drives away and the police get a description of the getaway car, it matches his delivery truck. So the police stop him. They accuse him of driving the bandits away, and he has no idea what they're talking about. So, he's saying he's been doing his deliveries. He doesn't know what's going on, but they go ahead, they pick him up, they take him to the station for further questioning, and he maintains his innocence the whole time, despite the fact that they rough him up a bit. They're trying to pull a confession out of him. Now, innocent though he is, he gets fired from his job because the flower shop just can't afford to have someone with his reputation working with his customers. The poor guy, right? Well, the police ultimately clear Joe, but not before his name is all over the newspapers and his reputation is destroyed. Well, he wants to find out who set him up and why. Now, it turns out that Joe has had a run-in with the law in the past. In fact, he got this job as a flower delivery driver through his parole officer. But he's not a murderer and he's not a bank robber, and he just wants to clear his name. Joe follows a lead to Mexico. This is where the slime balls have been summoned. They're going to split the stolen money, or at least that's what they think is going to happen. Along the way, Joe tracks down one of the slime balls, Pete Harris. Now, Pete is getting ready to leave for Barrados. This is a resort area in Mexico. I don't think that's a real place. I think it's a fictional place. But anyway, they're all meeting in Barrados. It's a resort, and they're going to meet up, and they're going to split the cash. Now, here's how Joe and Pete get to know each other. It's kind of a rude introduction. And, yeah, there's a lot of slaps and punches.
Now you and I are gonna have a little talk.
You a cop?
That's to teach you manners. I'm the guy that drove the florist truck.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Take a good look, Pete. You're looking into Patsy with his frame for the kill.
You got the wrong guy. Lay off, will you?
When you're ready to talk.
You got me wrong.
What'd you do with your cut, Pete?
I don't follow you.
You will. You were one of them, weren't you?
I don't know what you're talking about. Listen, this ain't my bag. I copped it out of a car.
You're lying.
Give me that.
What's this plane ticket? This wire? What's so interesting in Baradas? So we start all over again.
Go ahead. Go ahead. But I still don't know what you're talking about.
If I can't open you up, maybe the cops can.
Wait. No cops.
Sadly, Pete ends up shot by police at the airport, and Joe decides to assume Pete's identity. Joe then can infiltrate the gang, and when he does ultimately meet up with them, he tells them he wants to be cut in on the split. He wants part of the money. Well, they don't love this idea because A, they think he killed Pete Harris. They don't like that. And B, because that would mean they'd get a smaller cut of the total take. But Joe threatens them, saying that he'll go to the cops and there won't be any split if they don't cut him in.
All right, you two knuckleheads. Now you're gonna listen to me. Unless you want to join the guns in the well. I got my invitation to the party. I take Pete Harris' share.
You gave Harris the double shuffle.
You got it wrong, pal. The cops paid him off in full. Like gambling. A man puts up his bet, he's entitled to be paid off if he wins. Harris lost.
What did you put up?
A possible 20 years in stir. You're looking at the guy who was framed for the job. That's why I'm cutting myself in, whether you like it or not. You're smart. You'll play along with me. You're not. It goes rough on everybody.
Well, there are some double crosses and some more slaps and punches and so on. And then Big arrives on the scene. But in Mexico, he's kind of a different guy. He's playing the role of a retired businessman who's in Mexico for a fishing vacation. He's super friendly. He's a nice guy. Then his daughter comes along and he seems like this great dad. So Joe and the daughter develop a little relationship, and that all seems kind of cozy. There's a love interest there. But we do learn that Tim Foster is not the super nice guy that we think he is there at the resort. Of course, we saw him before when he was in Kansas City, and he was kind of a gang leader. But he was also an ex-cop who was kicked off the police force. Now, his daughter doesn't know anything about his criminal activities. All right, so more slaps and punches and intrigue ensue until we get to a final showdown. And Joe gradually uncovers the truth about Foster's involvement in the heist and the true nature of the plan.
Only a cop would know you couldn't use $1.2 million in hot cash, but you could trade it in for a nice, clean reward.
Got it all figured out.
Uh-huh. 3 little patsies. 1 down, 2 to go. Your being there to give us a lift, the money on a platter. Honey for the bees, huh, Captain Foster?
Stay where you are.
Sure. We'll wait till the cops arrive. Try my story on for size. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize.
Yeah, Foster intended to entrap the slime balls, make it look like he was working with the investigator on this case, and then get the reward money. Actually, that's kind of a smart plan. The actual bills from the heist were all marked, so nobody was really going to be able to spend that money anyway. But if he got the reward, yeah, it's a smaller amount. It's only 25% of the total take. But, it would be clean. You could spend it, there'd be no reason to hide. It was the perfect crime. Seemed like a pretty good plan. Okay, so Joe figures all of this out, and in the melee, the slime balls end up shot to death. And so does Big. They kind of shoot each other. There's a big thing. Okay, but before Big dies, he tells the investigator on the case that Joe deserves the reward money. and he gives Joe his blessing to, kind of continue that relationship with his daughter. Joe and the daughter end up together, and everyone lives happily ever after. Well, I mean, except for the slime balls and for Tim Foster because they're all dead. I thought this was a pretty entertaining story. Now, is there tremendous depth here? No. Are there any profound insights that we can pull from this? Not really. But it was fun, and I liked John Payne as Joe Rolfe. Now, I do think he kind of overacted a bit at times, but that added to the fun. It was all a little bit over the top, but that's what made it entertaining. So, how good was this movie really? Well, in a few moments, we'll get to my official review. But first, I'm very excited to welcome our first pretend sponsor to the Idle Hour. Prunes. That's right, we're up to over 50 listeners on Apple and Spotify. So as you can imagine, the pretend advertisers are beating a path to our door. Have you had your prunes today? They're the fruit that gets you on the run.
I think a lot of people don't realize how good prunes really are. Not hard and dry like prunes used to be. Plump, moisturized, tender, sweet. Still packed with energy. All those vitamins and minerals, natural fruit sugars, just taste better. Unnatural for breakfast. Put them on your cereal. Chop them up in the muffin mix. Delicious. You know something else? Makes a great snack right out of the package. How long has it been since you've tried prunes? You don't know what you're missing.
Attention listeners. It is time to learn how Jennifer rates movies.
Our scale is pretty simple. We classify a film as either unwatchable, watchable, or rewatchable, or somewhere in between. An unwatchable film is really bad. So bad, in fact, that it's hard to sit through. It's either boring or stupid or cringy or just plain terrible. Now, a watchable film is one that's basically okay. It gives you something to do for a couple of hours, may have some interesting and entertaining parts, but it doesn't really leave a strong impression on you. A rewatchable film, on the other hand, is one that's so good, so meaningful, so impactful, so riveting, so thought-provoking, so emotionally charged, and/or so beautifully produced that you would invest the time necessary to watch it again. So there we have it. Our scale is unwatchable, watchable, or rewatchable. Now, I have a worksheet that helps me calculate the rating. I essentially award points, or what I call diamonds, to films based on 5 factors: story, character development, writing, so that would show up in a film as dialogue or narration, pace, and discussability. Now, when I'm considering discussability, what I'm basically doing is answering the question, does the story have enough depth to explore and analyze through discussion? Because, that's the fun part.
It's that it.
Yes. No. One last thing about my rating system.
I thought we were done.
This is my system. I'm not a film student. I don't really know anything about film. The factors I've built in are those that I care about. I don't watch or read other reviews, so nothing influences the way I feel about a film beyond the film itself.
It's that it.
One more last thing.
This overview is dragging on.
When reviewing a film, I try really hard to stay within the confines of the story. I don't consider the historical context of the film, when it was released, and I don't care about the biographies of the stars or the filmmakers or anything like that. The story itself is the thing that I care about.
It's that it.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure of it. That's it.
Well, then, let's get on with the show.
I think I mentioned earlier that I didn't originally have Kansas City Confidential on my watch list, and that's true. I sort of watched it on impulse because it just sort of showed up in my YouTube feed. I thought I was going to not love this movie. I thought it was going to be cheesy. I thought maybe this was going to be something I could make fun of. And while the slaps and the punches and the dialogue did make me crack a smile, I actually like this film a lot more than I thought I was going to. So let's get into it. We'll break it down, look at our usual factors here in rating our films. So the first one is story. Was this an interesting and entertaining story worth telling? Well, as I said before, this wasn't a deep story. There's no profound observations or commentary on the human condition that we're going to find here. I mean, when you compare this story to, say, Casablanca, I mean, there really is no comparison. But was it entertaining? Well, yeah, it was. The plot was interesting. There were some twists and turns there. The mastermind was actually a cop. The innocent flour truck driver had a criminal record. There was the intricate plan to commit the perfect crime. It was a fun watch. And for this reason, I'm going to go with 4 diamonds for story. Character development. Were the characters dimensional? Did their actions ring true? I think the characters and the way they were developed were the most interesting part of this story. Let's take Tim Foster, Mr. Big, for instance. When we first meet him as the movie opens, he's gruff. He looks like a gangster. He roughs people up. He talks like a real tough guy, somebody you don't want to cross. But then when we see him at the resort in Mexico with his daughter, well, he's playing cards with the guys. He's real chatty with the workers there at the resort. He seems like a loving father. He really cares about his daughter. He seems like this friendly, happy-go-lucky guy, somebody that you definitely wouldn't associate with a crime. I thought that was interesting. It would have been more obvious to play him as a total thug all the way. Okay, but, at the resort, when we're starting to like this guy, well, there's a little bit of a switch again because, we learned that he was kicked off the police force. Why? Was he wrongfully accused? Was he framed while he was on the force? Is that why he has decided to go all the way to actually become a criminal? Well, we don't know. What we do know is that his daughter, who, by the way, is a law student in Missouri, thinks that she can restore his position with the Kansas City Police Department. And interestingly enough, he doesn't want her to. Question, why? That's interesting. We might be able to dig a little deeper there. All right, well, anyway, there are a lot of sides to Mr. Big. And then there's Joe Rolfe, the flower delivery guy. I mean, he seems innocent. We like him. We want him to be able to clear his name. But then he says he wants in on the take. Now, was that just part of his plan to catch these guys, to infiltrate the gang? Probably. But I don't know. I'm left with the question. If he thought he could get away with it, would he have taken the money? Was he corrupted too? I don't know. I think he was a good guy, but I don't know. It's interesting. There are still some questions there. I also thought Pete Harris was an interesting character. He was one of the slime balls, and, he was killed early on, but he was such a nervous little fellow. It's so funny because at one point he tells Big's been slapping him around, and he tells Big not to get the wrong idea about him, that he won't shove around easily. But he is shoved around easily. He's beat up multiple times in this story, and he doesn't even make it to the end. He doesn't even live long enough to get to the last part of the film, and he's already beat up more than any other character. He's just very nervous. He's kind of a whiner, and he chain smokes. It seems like he's a chain smoker because he's just nervous. It's a nervous habit. So, as I said, I think the characters in this film are the most interesting part. I think this is a strength of Kansas City Confidential, so I'm going to give it 4 diamonds. Writing. Was the dialogue beautiful, funny, poignant, and/or thought-provoking? Well, there's no poetry here, but the dialogue was right for the genre, kind of fun, I'm giving it 3 diamonds. The pace. What pace did the story unfold? I'm going to go with 4 Diamonds. I think the pace was pretty good. There was a slow piece in there. At least I felt like it was a little bit slow around the time that Joe catches up with Pete Harris. But it didn't drag on and on. I thought the pace was pretty good. I'm going with 4 Diamonds. And then finally, discussability. Does the story have enough depth to explore and analyze through discussion? I'm going to go with a rather low score here, 2 Diamonds. There's not a lot to discuss. That's not why the people involved put this film together. This is just for fun. It's just a fun, easy watch. And, I'm going to go with 2 Diamonds. I went back and forth between 2 and 3. But then, I popped Casablanca into my mind, and the distinction is just tremendous between those two films. So I'm going to go with 2 Diamonds on discussability. And that brings us to a total of 3.4 diamonds. So Kansas City Confidential falls in the watchable category. If you're looking for an entertaining, easy watch, I think Kansas City Confidential is for you. It's all over the internet, so you can watch it for free.
And now it's time for Idel Hour Trivia.
Well, Lorenzo, you know I love Kansas City.
It's very nice.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing in Kansas City, Lorenzo?
The Louvre.
The Louvre? No, that isn't in Kansas City. But hey, you know what? Kansas City has a nickname. You know what it is?
I can't imagine.
Paris of the Plains.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's because we have a lot of fountains, or we have a lot of boulevards or something like Paris. I have no idea, honestly. But anyway, seriously, what is your favorite thing about Kansas City, Lorenzo?
The Mall of America.
The Mall of America. No, Lorenzo, that's in Minneapolis.
I meant to say Radio City Music Hall.
Nope, that's New York City. Try again.
Walt Disney World.
Orlando, Florida. Lorenzo, you've never heard of Kansas City before right now, have you?
No.
Well, I like many things about Kansas City, but mostly I like it because it's my home.
Yes.
Well, our trivia question today is about Kansas City. Some very famous movie stars from Hollywood's golden era were either born or raised here. Now, I'm going to give you 3 movie stars. Which one was not born or raised in Kansas City? A. Gene Tierney, B. Ginger Rogers, or C. Jean Harlow?
I know it is already.
Wow. Well, okay, hold on a minute. Let's give the folks at home a moment to think about it. Time's up. Lorenzo, I know you've been dying to answer this one, so who was not born or raised in Kansas City? A. Gene Tierney, B. Ginger Rogers, or C. Jean Harlow?
Gene Tierney.
Hey, you're right, Lorenzo. Now, interesting thing about Gene Tierney, she does have a tie-in to the city where I was born.
I thought you were born in Kansas City.
No, I was actually born in Topeka, Kansas. Oh, poor Gene Tierney. Her time in Topeka was not necessarily a very happy one, I don't think. But that's a story for another episode. Ginger Rogers was born in Independence, Missouri. That's a suburb of Kansas City in 1911. And Jean Harlow was born in Kansas City that same year. Can you imagine 2 huge stars being born in Kansas City in the same year?
Astonishing.
Yeah, well, maybe someday, when you're a famous AI-generated personality, they'll be saying, yeah, he got his start on a podcast working with someone from Kansas City. There is probably no film more Kansas City-centric than a crazy 1957 production directed by Academy Award-winning director Robert Altman. The Delinquents, Altman's first film, was not only set in Kansas City, but it was filmed here, and it included a cast made up mostly of locals. Now, why, you might wonder, did Altman choose Kansas City for this operation? Well, because it was his hometown too. Altman was born here in 1925. I haven't seen this film, but I have watched the trailer, and I think that's about as far as I want to go. I mean, it looks pretty bad, to be honest. Bad acting, cheesy storyline. Well, you know what? How about this? I'm going to play the trailer for you. Now, I know you're not going to be able to see it, but just imagine a lot of cheesiness and judge for yourself.
Here is the screen's most shocking expose of the baby faces who have just taken their first stumbling steps down Sin Street, USA. Here is a picture that dares to put on film the ravaged lives in the adolescent jungles of America today. Here is the social register of the shiv, the zip gun, and back alley emotion. These are the children of violence who live today as if there's no tomorrow. These are the delinquents.
Wow. Now, I'm looking at a picture of the movie poster right now, and it's pretty dramatic. It says, "The hoods of tomorrow, the gun moles of the future, the delinquents of today. They have to hurt someone, even if it has to be themselves." So, what's this movie about? Well, I don't know. Apparently, it's a cautionary tale about a teenage boy who gets involved with a Kansas City gang. Apparently he had a breakup with his girlfriend. He's all mixed up. At first he tries to get help, but despite himself, he gets caught up with the gang. And now, as I said, I haven't seen this film, but I do know how it ends. It ends with a lecture for all of us about the disease of juvenile delinquency. Here's Altman's public service announcement.
This is one story. Who's to blame? The answers are not easy, nor are they pleasant. We are all responsible. And it's our responsibility not to look the other way. Violence and immorality like this must be controlled, channeled. Citizens everywhere must work against delinquency, just as they work against cancer, cerebral palsy, or any other crippling disease. For delinquency is a disease. But the remedies are available. Patience, compassion, understanding, and respect for parental and civil authority. By working with your church group, with the youth organization in your town, by paying closer attention to the needs of your children, you can help prevent the recurrence of regrettable events like the ones you have just witnessed. You can help halt this disease before it cripples our children, before it cripples society.
Now, Robert Altman didn't win any awards for The Delinquents that I know of, but he did go on to have quite an impressive career in Hollywood. We all have to start somewhere. He was nominated for 5 Academy Awards in the Best Director category for 1970's MASH, 1975's Nashville, 1992's The Player, 1993's Shortcuts, and 2001's Gosford Park. Not bad for our hometown boy. Well, Lorenzo, we just wrapped up our 10th episode. It's a milestone. And we have 7 subscribers on YouTube.
6.
What?
6. We have 6 subscribers.
No, I just checked. It says 7 subscribers.
I'm one of them. We only have 6 real subscribers.
Oh. Well, then, we only have 5 subscribers.
What do you mean?
I subscribed too. Well, and so did my mom, and my sister, and my friend Leanne. So you know what that means, Lorenzo?
We need a marketing plan.
We have 2 subscribers we don't know.
I better keep my resume up to date.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Most of you are listening out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, which is great. But I do have a personal goal to get to 10 subscribers, real or otherwise, out on YouTube by the summer. If you could tell a friend or even subscribe yourself, that would be such a boost. I don't know how to promote a show like this. I barely know how to produce a show like this.
True.
So if you like this show and can help me out, I really appreciate it. Well, that about does it for us. Have a great week, everyone. And when your week is through, come on back and see us. Say goodbye, Lorenzo.
Goodbye, Lorenzo.